Well, good evening, everybody. It is 11 p.m. here in Edinburgh, Scotland, in the glorious United Kingdom. And, well, good evening, everybody. Oh, hang on. I've got my sound still. It is. There we go. There we go. Always mute my own stream. That way we don't get that problem. I should remember that in future. Are we broadcasting? I'm not really sure. We are live. John is here. John Anderson. Hello, mate. Good to see you. And Stephen Greenwood is here as well. We're beginning to get people filtering in, which is good. Which is awesome. And Mike is here. MJN Studios is here. I just need to refresh my laptop over here. So if I'm doing Studio One, I can see the chat over here. Because when I have Studio One open, I cannot do that. Because I've only got the one screen. So there we go. Come on. Okay. Waiting for that to load up. I hate it. My laptop is absurdly slow. It's a rubbish laptop, but it was a gift from a client, so what can you do? So Mike says he sees me. Bobby Booth is here. He says hello. Stephen Greenwood says I'm tracking a band, but we'll check in when I can. Awesome. Thank you, mate. Appreciate it. I hope the audio is nice and clear. Should be, hopefully. And picture, as far as I can tell, looks pretty good. Well, it's buffering like crazy over on my laptop over here, but that's because that laptop is slow. So how are we doing, everybody? Hope everybody is well and has had a good week. I apologize for being a couple of minutes late, but I had to make an emergency dash to the bathroom. I have a slightly dodgy tummy, and so it's a little bit, shall we say, explosive. So, and it's just like I'm fine, and then suddenly I have to go. So I am hoping that we can get through the show today without any problems. I'm hoping I'm not going to have to make a sudden dash. So, but if I do, I apologize, and you guys can just talk amongst yourselves whilst that's happening. But hopefully we'll be fine, and there won't be any rude interruptions. Just Bob says, hello, Johnny, good picture. Awesome. Thank you. I hope the audio is good as well. I've repositioned my mic a little bit so that it's not in, you know, it's not in shot. It's not in picture, which is good. So hopefully that works out well. We've got 11 people here. So tonight is pretty much going to be my normal kind of Q&A session. However, I do have a couple of things that I'm going to talk about as we go through the course of the evening, and a couple of things that I can maybe show you guys as well to do with arranging, because I know I get quite a few questions on that. John says, so my friend, what's up with your moving? At the moment, my bowels are doing most of the moving. We haven't had the official documentation from our landlord that says we have to move, but he has actually been here, and he has spoken to us, and he's given us a verbal, I'm selling the house, so you're going to have to be out by the first week of May. So, so that's essentially the story. But as I say, we are under no legal obligation to be out of this property until we receive a proper legal document that tells us we have to be. Until we get that, we can stay here. So if he wants us out by May the 1st, which is what he said, then he should have sent that document, and it should have been here 2 weeks ago. And he hasn't. So, because basically the law states that we have 2 months notice from receipt of the legal document. So when we actually open that envelope with that document in it, from that moment, the clock starts ticking, but it doesn't start until that point. It's a little bit like Brexit. Although, you know, we're supposed to be on a, you know, on a ticking scale that, you know, March 19th, 2019 is when the UK is supposed to be leaving the EU. But from what I've been hearing just yesterday and today, that it is entirely possible that the whole thing might be put on hold whilst they deal with some legal issues. Deer Creek Audio says, evening, mate, at least for me, late night for you. Actually, it's not too bad. It's only 11 p.m. here because you guys are on daylight saving time. So that makes it nice and easy for me, which is why tonight, as you can see from the title below, if you're looking, it says 2-hour special. That's right, folks. I'm going to go through and do a double-length show. And I plan to do this all day, so I'm hoping that my butt holds out, so to speak, and doesn't give us a problem, so that I can actually sit here and we can deal with questions and demos and whatever you guys need for the next 2 hours, which would be cool if you guys are up for that. Now, we've only got 11 people here, so if numbers start to drop down to, you know, less than that, then we will make it a shorter show. But my ideal plan at the moment is that we will go for the full 2 hours, but we will see. So if you could like the video and share it to the other Studio One groups or anywhere else you can think of that it would be worth sharing it, that would be great. Then yeah, that would be cool. So as soon as I say that, we drop down to 9. I think at the moment, this is possibly the smallest crowd we've had, which is a bit of a shame. So, yeah. If we don't have enough people, then we will not have a 2-hour show. We'll just go through until midnight here, which would be 7 p.m. in the Central Daylight Time area in the United States. So let's see. I think Deer Creek Audio has the first question of the evening, which is cool. He says, I have a question on loop recording. Set a loop, take to layers, unpack layers is the only way if doing a lot of background vocals, stacking tracks in unison, harmonies. You can do it that way. I don't tend to loop record. I'll tell you that. Especially actually if I'm doing backing vocals, I don't loop record. What I tend to do is I create my track. Let's say it's the lowest part. I might do the top part first. I might do the lowest part first. It depends. But yeah, I would do whatever part it's going to be. I do that bit. It might be a phrase. It might be a couple of lines, whatever it's going to be. I would do that one part, and then I'd stop, duplicate the track, do the next one, stop, duplicate track, do the next one. You would think that that's a more fudgy, fiddly, not workflow friendly way of doing it, but you know what? It's actually pretty quick. Yes, you could do it with loop recording and have lots of layers and that kind of thing. But then the thing with layers is you have to unpack those layers and then you have to get them into the, you know, promote the ones you want and, you know, take the sections from the ones that you want and that kind of thing. Yeah, so if you're layering 20 background vocals, you know what, how the way Queen did it? They didn't have a DAW. So when they were doing things like Bohemian Rhapsody, they would gather around a mic or a pair of stereo mics, and that's how they do their BVs. That's how it's how the Bee Gees did their BVs. It's how what's the other group that is well known for having lots of vocal harmonies? The Beach Boys. Yeah, that's how they did it. They would gather around a mic or around a stereo mic or something like that, and that's how they did theirs. So if that's the sound you're going for, I would say get your guys together, rehearse well, make sure everybody knows their parts, get around an omnidirectional mic or a pair of stereo mics, and kaboom, do them in one take that way. He says, I don't have 4 singers. Well, that's what, I mean, I don't either. I do all my backing vocals myself. If you listen to my EP, that's all me. And the way I did that was one part at a time and then singing against myself. So no, I don't loop record. John Anderson says, when it's proper, have you done any recording on the Series 3? And if so, how did you set up your headphone monitoring while tracking? Really looking at adding a Series 3, either 16 or 24. Currently, I'm not using the Series 3 for recording because I'm testing some other gear, which I cannot talk about. So I am using the Series 3 strictly as a control surface right now. But I envisage that at a later date, this will become my interface as well. Deer Creek continues by saying, can you get all layers to play at once without unpacking? Not as far as I know. Singers 4 times equals 16 vocals. That's correct, yes. Just Bob says, question, can you possibly record a 3 or 4 jazz chord progression and loop it and explain the building process you go through on creating the keyboard track? I could do that. Yeah. Explain the building process you go through on creating a keyboard track. You know what? I don't really have a building process. That will come as a surprise to you maybe, but I don't really have a building process. I tend to just fiddle about until I find something that sounds great. Much the same way that a lot of you guys do. It's just that we just have a different harmonic palette. You know, you guys might be working with, you know, more sort of diatonic harmony. So you're dealing with triads, C major chords, G major chords, D, A, E, B, you know, and maybe a couple of minor chords, A minor, D minor. That might be your harmonic palette. So those 7 or 8 chords, I just have a much more complex and much more rich harmonic palette. But essentially, I'm probably doing the same thing as you, is I'm playing something until I find something that sounds good. And then when I hit upon that thing that sounds good, I keep playing it until it becomes tactile memory. And then I build the song around that, and I start doing scratch tracks and that kind of thing. And that the scratch tracks thing in Studio One, that's pretty much my building process for building out the song. That's what I do. I do a rough keyboard part, I do a rough bass part using Presence XT. I don't even get my bass out when I'm doing scratch stuff. And I'll use a drum loop. And that's how I build the bare basics of the song. And then, you know, that gets sent out to whomever is going to be a session musician on the song. And then they come and they overdub their parts. And then eventually the scratch track go away. And we start building out the song proper. That's pretty much it, to be honest. Deer Creek Audio says, I loop record a lot if doing MIDI, so I can build a track, especially percussion. Yes, loop recording to build percussion is a great way to do it. And actually, I know some people that loop record to build a drum track, actually. So they'll start with, you know, they'll start just by playing a hi-hat part or a ride cymbal part, and then they'll add a kick and snare drum to that same thing. And, you know, that's how they build out their grooves. So they'll loop it a couple of times. And the good thing about MIDI is it just adds to what you've already got. It doesn't, you know, over-record, which is cool. Mark Young says, hi, Johnny. Sorry I'm a bit late. Well, you know what? So was I. I was a bit late. At the top of the show, I explained that I have a slightly dodgy tummy, which means my buttocks are not obeying orders at the moment. So just as I was about to hit start broadcast, I had to make a dash to the bathroom. So I'm hoping that we can go through a whole show without any trouble, without me having to rush off to the bathroom. We got 13 people here, which is a small crowd. I think we peaked at 21 or 22 last time. So it'd be nice if we could get similar numbers. Couldn't hit the correct tone with a bazooka, says Chris BB. Good to see you, Chris, by the way. I'm not sure what you're referring to. Are you talking about vocal tone or guitar tone or what? I don't know. Deer Creek says, so it's hard to build a mic'd percussion track without hearing what's recorded previously. Looping for that stuff is much faster for me. I understand stopping, starting. Yeah, you see, this is where having a clear idea in your head of what you want before you even get to a session is a good approach to take. Certainly, that's my approach. You know, I know what my percussion parts are going to be. You know, it's not just a case of I go, oh, maybe some shaker would be good on this song, and I just pick up a shaker and start doing it. You know, some people work very spontaneously like that, and that's how they build their songs. They build their songs very spontaneously. For me, it's already done up here. The song is already finished. It's already mixed. It's already mastered in my head. I know what it sounds like, so I know what each part is going to be. But you know, other people have different things. Dooley is asking, is that Reeling the Years? Yes, it is. I got this for Christmas. By Brian Sweet. It's very good. It goes into some real interesting details about how they you know, some sort of behind the scenes look at the recording sessions and songwriting sessions that went into Steely Dan Records, and you get some real insight into what Walter and Donald are really like, which is very cool. There are points in the book where I'm thinking it's not brilliantly written. It's not necessarily the most mature writing style, and it jumps about a little bit at points. But it does talk about their touring from 72 to 74, and goes into some details about some of the things that happened and that may have led to their decision in 1974 to say touring just is not for us. So, but it is good. It's pretty good, and I'm kind of where am I up to at the moment? I'm up to 1993. When Donald had released his second solo album, Kamakidiad, and they were touring with that, or playing some gigs, some Steely Dan shows where they were featuring those songs. So yeah, so that's kind of where I'm up to in the book at the moment. I speed read, so I read very quickly. I'm on my 4th read through of this, believe it or not. I found my old reel book the other day. I hardly ever crack it open. Ever heard of that book? Yes, I have one. In fact, I have several. I have a real book for concert pitch instruments, B-flat instruments, E-flat instruments, and I have sketch scores as well. And I have the complete Charlie Parker Omni book as well. And I have the complete John Coltrane book as well, which has got all of the extremely accurate transcriptions of Coltrane solos. So I learned those. And basically that helps me learn improvisation and improve and broaden out my improvisational palette. Let's see. Just Bob says, I hear the song build up in my head, then when I record, never turns out the same, but sometimes better, sometimes not. But for me, that is the magic, since I do all instruments myself. Yes, I do that. I do all my instruments pretty much. However, this is kind of the way I've worked over the last 25 years, really, that, you know, if I know somebody who can do the job better, I get them in. Because I don't want the quality of my songs to suffer because of my inability, you know, my limitations. So if I know somebody that can absolutely nail a fantastically complex piano solo, I'll get them to do it rather than me. In fact, on my EP that I'm working on, which will be out later this year, I have exactly a song just like that, and I've got a guy who has already absolutely nailed a fantastic piano solo. The song, by and large, features his playing, and he is a far better piano player than me, so I get him in to do that kind of stuff. Let's see. Deer Creek says it was the Bible at Berkeley back in the day. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the real book is pretty much the Bible for learning improvisation. And, you know, if you want to play jam sessions anywhere, in any club, in any town or any city, you need to have a good solid grasp of the real book and standards and that kind of stuff. You need to know the chord changes of pretty much every standard. Let's see. Oh, we've got 15 people in here now. That's good. Excellent. So if we can stay above 15, I will do a 2-hour show. If we drop below 15, by the time we get sort of towards the end of this hour, I will wrap the show at that point. But if there is more than 15 people in here going over into the next hour, we will carry on. And we will demonstrate some stuff. I've got some stuff that I want to cover at some point. But yeah, I'm going to take your questions just now. Then we'll take a break from questions, and I'll demo something on arrangement that I've been thinking about. And then we will come back to questions after that. So that's kind of where I'm going. Let's see. Chris BB says, would you recommend a theory class if I'm interested in horn and or string voicings? There are a good few online. Now, if you want to get to know music theory and that kind of stuff, yeah, I do teach that. I can teach that. I can teach horns and string arrangement, string arranging. Now, I am working on building a VIP membership site, or sort of a members area part of my site, which will be premium. It will be a subscription. But within that, I'm going to be providing content for people who become VIPs who are interested in developing their arranging skills for rhythm section arranging, as well as horns, strings, backing vocals, those kind of things. So you can really just build out your songs and develop your palette, your tonal palette, and that kind of thing. So I'm going to be doing those kind of things for my VIPs, which means that kind of stuff won't be available here on this YouTube channel. However, I may well make some excerpts available here on the YouTube channel, so you get to see if my VIP scheme is not for you, you'll at least get a little flavor of what it's like on the inside of the VIP membership area. So yeah, so those are kind of things that I'm thinking about for the VIP at the moment. So things like arranging classes, more in-depth songwriting classes, kind of extending the kind of stuff that I do with Johnny Gibe on Wednesdays for Songwriting Simplified. So going into more depth and detail on chord changes, different musical styles, and how to write in different styles, or how to adapt a song for different styles. So let's say you've got a death metal song, how you can turn that into a luscious lounge jazz elevator style ballad with a bossa nova beat and still keep the song authentic. So those kind of things. Let's see, let me just go take up and see if I've missed anything. Deer Creek says, will I cheat with MIDI on a keyboard solo? I do it all the time with piano parts. You write out the MIDI. If I can avoid it, no. I prefer not to, but there have been times when I've had to do something like that. Like there was a time when I had a sax solo on one of my records from a few years back. And there was a section of the solo that just didn't cut for whatever reason. It just didn't come out particularly nice sounding for whatever reason. I think maybe a section of tape got garbled, and so it didn't print very well. And of course, I could not hire that particular guy back in, so I had to use a MIDI, a sample, basically, and trigger the sample from my keyboard. So that was my cheat moment, really. I occasionally cheat with guitar parts, like if I need like a sort of almost flamenco or classical style acoustic guitar, nylon strung guitar part for a song, I will cheat that, because samples are really, really good. But the thing with samples is you have to think like the musician playing that instrument. So if it's an acoustic guitar, you have to think like an acoustic guitar player. Otherwise, it's not going to sound authentic and it's going to sound rubbish. So same for a trumpet solo or a saxophone solo, or if you're writing a horn section, MIDI horn section, you need to remember that real horn players have to breathe. So you need to give them breathing space. So you need to remember to phrase properly. Don't just play lots of long tones and think, hey, you know what, they'll be able to play those. No, they won't. Not unless you have several, you know, let's say you've got a trumpet line and a tenor sax line or something like that. So it's like 2-part harmony and they're playing lots of long tones. They're not going to be able to do that unless you've got 3 trumpet players and 3 tenor sax players and they can all do staggered breathing to cover the gaps. And really, no, you don't want to do that. Let's see. Woodby says, I promise I'll be good tonight. When have you been bad, Woodbeast? Not on my stream, anyway. Mark says, looking forward to the arranging help in VIP area. It's an area of songwriting I'm definitely weak at. Well, that's cool, Mark. Yep. It's something that I have been doing for a lot of years, so it's something I can talk about with confidence and some weight, I think. John Anderson says, I'm re-recording a nylon acoustic guitarist tomorrow for a Brazilian 3-piece jazz band. The first take was using his guitar pickup, which was not okay. I have 2 mics ready to go. Thoughts? So you're getting the same guy in to redo his part, but using mics instead of his pickup. So you're going to have to basically get him to listen to his original part and see if he can get as close to it as he can. That would be my suggestion. And if you've got 2 mics, I'm presuming you're going for like a stereo matched pair. Well, you can configure those in XY, or you can have them as a spaced pair. One kind of like picking up from below the bridge of the guitar, pointing towards the sound hole, and then the other one kind of getting much more of the string action at the 12th fret, but pointing towards the same spot. Make sure they're exactly the same distance from the guitar to the capsule of the mics. Otherwise, if they are not, you will get phasing problems. You don't want that. So make sure your mics are exactly, measure it out with a tape measure. Okay, make sure that it's you know, extremely close. The more accurate your mic placement is, the less potential phase problems you're going to have. So that's really important. Let's see. Deer Creek says, I cheat all the time with my PSO. I can't play bassoon. Neither can I. So if I need a bassoon part, I will fake it with the best of them. But again, keep within the register of the instrument. Try and, you know, look up charts to see what the register of the instrument is and see what's actually playable, because you might find some intervals are not particularly playable on a bassoon that they are on a keyboard. So bear those kind of things in mind if you want to go really authentic. MJN Studios retracted his message. That's a shame. Okay. John Anderson is asking Woodbeast to share his joke about the first offender. MJN says, cheating is 75% of my writing. I'm only really a drummer. Well, you know what? I started out as a drummer. That is exactly what I started way back in 1977. That's when I started playing drums. And I've been playing drums every day of my life ever since, which is like pretty much nearly more than 40 years. I can't count clearly, but yeah. Pretty much 41 years-ish. And so, yeah, I did exactly what you're doing right now, Mike. You're teaching yourself piano. That's exactly what I did. It's exactly what I did. When I was 9 years old, I decided to get to grips with piano. My parents had a Fender Rhodes, and so I listened to records that we had on in the house, and I would pick things out on the piano there on the Fender Rhodes, and that's how I learned. So, you know, when you guys say, hey, you know, lots of complex harmony and all of that kind of stuff, you know what? No one's ever taught me that. Nobody has ever taught me what, you know, tritonal substitution is, or what, you know, 13 sharp 11 flat 9 chords are. You know, nobody ever taught me any of that stuff. I worked it out. I listened, I heard those chord changes on the records, and that's how I did it. Chris says, may I use your logo to make a custom t-shirt if I agree to send you one? Chris, I actually have a custom t-shirt already made. I currently don't have them available for sale, but if there is enough interest, I can certainly get a short run done, and you can purchase them. So yeah, so I do actually have one made already, which is currently in the wash, which is why you don't normally see it hanging up on the back of the door there when I'm not wearing it for work or that kind of thing, or if I'm shooting a video and I need to have my custom t-shirt on. So I do have one, but thanks for the kind offer anyway. I really appreciate it. That's very cool. MGN says, bid war for that lonely cymbal stand in the corner. It's not actually a cymbal stand. Well, it kind of is. It kind of isn't. It's actually it's a stand for a pair of floor toms, but you can put a cymbal arm in the top of it as well and have a cymbal attached to it, which is what I used to do back in the day when I played a ridiculously, for me anyway, ridiculously big 6-piece drum set. Back in the days when I was playing lots of fusion and that kind of stuff. I was playing a lot of Brecker Brothers and Tower of Power stuff and Weather Report, Frank Zappa. I played all of that stuff when I was a kid. Looks like, oh, a snare stand. No, there's no snare drum stand there. There is a bass drum pedal, there's the tom holder, and there's a cymbal arm there, but that's it. And yes, they are actually parts of my drum kit. Parts of my drum set are dotted all around our apartment. I have my stack of drums, which is in the lounge at the moment, just stacked up in cases, and we've covered it up with nice cloths, nice covering, so you don't even notice it there. Just Bob is here. Good to see you, Just Bob. He says, music theory question, I think. With all the different scales, major, minor, Dorian, Mixolydian scale, and so on, why is it that every note on the guitar neck can be in key but still doesn't sound right? That's all to do with how those scales and how those notes relate to the key center of the song or the chords that you're playing over the top of at that time. So, you know, if your song is in, you know, if your chord changes at A to D to E, then A pentatonic will fit those very nicely. Or a little bit of A blues will work. So a little bit of A blues, a little bit of A pentatonic, A major scale will fit nicely. If you want to be adventurous, A Lydian will, A major Lydian will fit. So you get that nice little sharp 11 thing going on there. But yes, so it's all about context. Those scales seem to suggest all notes work somehow. Well, you know, all notes work. All notes work. There is no such thing as a wrong note. There really isn't. There really is no such thing as a wrong note. There's only degrees of dissonance or consonance. What do I mean by dissonance? Something that doesn't belong, something that clashes against a note. So there's a dissonance there. There's a dissonance there. You know, there's plenty of dissonances. There's your most obvious one. So there's no real such thing as a wrong note. There's only notes that fit better or less well with a particular set of chords. And at the end of the day, you know, Duke Ellington probably the greatest composer of music ever to come out of the United States. He said, if it sounds right, it is right. Doesn't matter whether theoretically, according to principles of music theory, you know, whether it's correct or not. If it sounds right, it is right. Same goes for mixing. Doesn't really matter what your, you know, kind of what your processing is on a particular channel. If it sounds right, it is right. So if you stacked 4 EQs and 2 compressors, but the quality of the sound, what comes out of the speakers, is awesome, and in the context of the whole mix sounds great, doesn't matter. George Duke was notorious for dissonance. Yes, he was. Thelonious Monk is another one who is well known for dissonance, and actually he did it kind of deliberate as well as accidental. Sometimes it was very measured dissonance. Carl Suter is here. Hey, Carl. He says, oh, I've played many wrong notes. Just ask my bandmates. No, you didn't play wrong notes. You played notes that did not fit the chord changes as well as they could. So John Anderson says, that's what I did when testing my acoustic. One mic for the highs up the neck and the other for the lows towards the bridge, but away from the sound hole. Same distance from the guitar body. Yeah, you need both. If you're doing space pair miking, they need to be exactly the same distance away from the guitar. Otherwise, what will happen is the sound will come from the guitar, from the body, from the sound hole, and from the neck, from the strings themselves. As it comes, if it hits the mics at different times, then the beginning of the transients of each of those captures by those microphones will be out of phase with each other, which will result in a sound that sounds thin and brittle and frail. So what you want is you want your 2 mics to capture the sound coming from the guitar at exactly the same time. Deer Creek says, tell John the 3-to-1 rule for a space pair. I don't really go with rules, to be honest. Just as long as you get those mics the same distance away from the guitar as each other, then you're going to be good to go if you're doing space pair. Personally, I don't mic. If I'm going to mic in stereo, I don't do space pair. I do XY. And I would position my XY pattern the same point that I would a mono mic. You know, kind of like around about 18 inches away, 14 to 18 inches away from the 14th fret pointing towards the sound hole. Make sure that neither of those 2 mics in this XY configuration are pointing directly at the sound hole. Yes, I know it's a method to avoid phase. Yes, it is. Yeah, I totally get that. But yeah, I'm not into following particular rules. You know, it's just, you know, the only way I know to do space pair miking is to just ensure that the 2 mics are equidistant from the guitar. Same distance from the guitar, jobs are good. It's a method to avoid phase. Yes, not a rule. Jimi Hendrix told us to break rules, and Bartok. Yes, and Stravinsky, and Beethoven, and Bach. Yes, Bach had a whole bunch of rules for his 48 preludes and fugues. He developed a whole bunch of harmony rules for those preludes and fugues, which he ended up showing just how you can break those rules and create even better music. What mics do you use for the XY? They have to be matched pair. So you could use, I don't know, a pair of Rode NT5s. Might be good. Deer Creek says, as guidance, expect phasing with breaking the 3-to-1 rule in close proximity. Yeah. Just Bob says, would-be's guitar and bass live on the painfully obvious wrong note as compared to other instruments. Again, you know, if everyone is playing a G major chord and you're the bass player and you play an A flat, it's going to sound a bit funky. unless the music calls for it. The context of the music calls for it, in which case, go for it. Here's the thing that I do quite often. If I'm the bass player in the band, and the band are playing G7 to C, normally a bass player would go G, C. Well, what I would do, or what I might do, if the context allows for it and the melody note allows for it, I would go. So I'm getting a sort of a D7, flat 9, sharp 11. Just to provide a little bit of extra spice. You know, it works, especially if you open the voicing up a little bit. You know, if you put it in the right place, it works. So yeah, so I hope that's answered those questions. Now, arranging. I said I would get into arranging. Whoopi says, that is why I love McCartney, he just knows. Yeah, all right, so I said I'd get into arranging. So at the moment, I'm working with a client on a drum and, well, it's not drum and bass at all. It's kind of like kind of house-ish remix of a record that he and I did. Going to be a couple of years ago, I think. So I'm working with him on that at the moment. And one of the songs that he wanted to remix, he wanted strings as kind of like a bed for the song. So I said, sure, yeah, we can do that. Absolutely. Now, the chord changes for the song are really simple and actually pretty repetitive. So it goes around those chord changes several times over and over. But the thing with that is I had to find a way to make it not boring. Because, you know, again, I'm thinking, though I'm using the Persona Symphonic Orchestra strings, you know, at the same time, I'm also thinking, hey, what would a real string quartet do with this? Would they be bored to tears by playing the same 4 notes over and over again? Yes, they would, probably. Especially, you know, for 5 minutes. You know, nobody's going to want to do that. So I am going to show you what I've got going on here with this song. Let me just turn that off because I don't need it. Oh, of course, you can't see this just yet, so I need to share my screen. Share your entire screen. Yes. Alrighty, so in just a second, you should be seeing my screen. And I'll get into what I've done here in just a second. But I'm going to kind of set the scene for this a little bit. Now, this song is still a work in progress. Okay, it's still pretty rough and ready. So, you know, kind of be prepared for mistakes, errors, that kind of stuff. We're just dealing with roughed out tracks at the moment. I'm muting the vocal because this is still a work in progress, and I don't want to have this song out there before it's ready, and I don't want to mess things up for my clients. So that is why I'm not going to let you hear the vocal. But I am going to let you hear the strings. Let me just check. We've got strings coming through. Okay, so we've got strings coming through. So I hope you guys can hear that, actually. Is this Mambo? No, it's not. I'm just going to move my mic a little bit closer, so if my voice gets a little bit louder, turn your volume down a little bit. But I need it a little bit closer because I'm going to be leaning over towards my keyboard, which you can't see now. And I still need to be sounds reversed. It's not. So hopefully that sounds okay. The thing is that it's strings, so it has a slow attack sound to it. So it doesn't immediately go pang, it goes bang, which is what real strings sound like. They don't immediately go bang unless you really, give a whole lot of attack with the bow. But for the most part, I'm not doing that. I mean, if I really smack the keys like that, you get much more immediate. But I don't want to do that. Okay. All right, so what we're going to be doing here is I'm going to show you what I did with this song. It's really simple. The chord changes essentially go G, D, F sharp in the bass, down to E minor, and back up again. And that's pretty much the verse. And then when you get to the chorus, it goes up to the C, down to G over B, A, G over B again. And then we're back round. So that's pretty much the harmonic palette. So very, very simple, straightforward song. How am I going to make this string arrangement sound interesting? Now, it's not entirely finished yet. There's a little section in the middle here which isn't quite right, but for the most part, it's spot on. So I'll just give you a little flavor of what I've done, and then I'm going to explain what I've done. Here's the next bit. All right, so that gives you a little bit of a flavor of what I had to do. So I'm going to isolate the strings now. Woodbeast is asking, is this mono or stereo? Unfortunately, Google Hangouts is mono. Nothing I can do about that. I'm playing Studio One in stereo, but you guys will only hear it in mono. I'm sorry about that. Nothing I can do about that. That's just the way Google Hangouts is. So I'm going to just give you what I've done with just the strings. And I've basically tried to keep it to Now, for regular string players, that's going to get incredibly boring if you're doing that 8 times in the verse. You're just going to be, moving around. The only thing that's making the difference there is the bass note, but this violin player at the top is just going. That's all they're doing for 8 bars, 16 bars. These two have got all the fun. And that's all they're doing. Not very exciting. So the bass player is going, So that's what they're doing. So it's it's a little bit basic. So what do I do? How do I make this interesting and actually provide an interesting music, a string bed, so that it's not completely just boring, 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 2 notes, sounds like a siren in the Baroque era. Maybe that's what Baroque era, ambulances sounded like, Who knows? I don't know. But, you want to avoid that kind of thing going on. So what do? You have to do something to give it some interest. So what I was doing was I basically just took the G major scale. And I basically decided that instead of actually playing chords, which is boring, we've all agreed that, I decided what I would do is I would actually pick out notes from that scale and just move them around in a kind of oscillating fashion, so you have like maybe 2 or 3 different melody lines going on. So something like this. Something like that. And then the vocal can sit on the top of that. And the bass can be quite happily going, which is all the bass is doing pretty much throughout this song. So that makes it fairly simple. Yeah, you can pluck strings. So I may well actually do that. I may actually have some pizzicato strings to go with this to provide some extra interest. So maybe when we get to the second verse, I will keep this little string bed going, but I will add some pizzicato strings, just bringing out a little melody here and there. Doon 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 doon, doon 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 doon, doon doon doon, doon 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 doon, something like that. I would do something like that. That again provides a little bit of interest, a different texture, a different tone, a different timbre. Those are all variations that you can use to create interest in your string arrangement. So this song goes around and around like that. Now, when we get to that second section, we're on to a C chord. Now, the guitar is playing a C. Guitar is playing C, down to G, then A, and then back up to G with the B and the bass. So what I did with the strings was I turned that into a major 7th, because we had no major 7ths at that point. So I thought, let's bring in that extra little bit of dissonance. Something like that. And, so those kind of things will make the difference. Now, you may have noticed there I slipped in a little C sharp. So I went, there's your major 7th, down to the G over B, A, but I put in the minor, I put in the 9th there as well. Resolve that. There's your C sharp. Resolve that. Back up again. And then you can do this. You can go. There you go. There's a wrong note. Well, it's not really a wrong note. It just doesn't really fit very well. So yeah, so things like passing notes, little chromatic tone colorations, I guess you could call it, where you're going. So, you know, got your G, C major 7 to the G, A minor, back to the G. Now I've got the second in there, and that flat 5 going back to the 5. All of those kind of things will create little additional melody parts, little additional tension. And again, there's a point there where I'm actually playing a D9. Where is it? I'm doing that. I think it's in the verse. And that's basically, I'm just going, da, 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 and it's just one little passing note. And it just creates an extra little bit of flavor, a little bit of extra color. Clam, yes. Yeah, if you're going to play an F natural on a D chord, make it a D7 sharp 9. And then we're in Steely Dan territory. There you go. Maybe that's my next thing. Arrange Steely Dan songs for string quartet. All right, let's just get back to some questions that may have come out of that. Let's see what we got. Yeah, the dominant 7th of a G chord is definitely an F natural. That's right. And the 6th E is always minor. The 6th chord in the key of G is minor. That's right. So you would have G, which is major, A minor, B minor, C, and then D7, D dominant. There's your A minor. And that's your G major scale harmonized correctly for the G major scale. Could you demo the rolling / passing notes on your guitar to help us guitar players? I'm not really a guitar player, Just Bob. I do have a guitar. I don't play it very well. I'll show you what I can do on the guitar, but I'll need to stop sharing the screen. Hang on a second. Let's go and stop that. So you should be able to see me now. I can take these off. There we go. I'll take my headphones off. Here it is, my Ibanez AGR 70 semi-hollow body guitar. Sounds gorgeous. It's not plugged in, so bear that in mind. And the camera's a little bit low, so you're not really going to be able to see it very well. But yeah. So I think what I was doing there was now all of that's pretty static. The only thing that's changing there is the bass note. I'm not a guitar player, but someone might do something like it's not very in tune, sorry. You can do little hammer-ons. So you can do hammer-ons, those kind of things. Those are always good to do. And different finger picking patterns. I'm not a guitar player. I just pretend. And I can play some jazz chords. And that's pretty much it, you know. That's all I can do. There you go. That's the extent of my guitar playing. Sorry about that. Let's see. The Ibanez is a looker. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You mean scales? I mean, for that particular song, it's just a G major scale. So you can pick notes out from the G major scale and they'll all fit, you know. So I now cannot hear myself because I've muted my speakers. Oh, you put the headphones back on. So, but you guys could hear that. I just couldn't. So, yeah, pick out little passing tones. So if you've got a G major chord and your D is at the top of the chord, you can move up to an A and back up to an E and back down. And then a little, you know, on this D over F sharp. Get the little F sharp in there. That turns temporarily turns into an F sharp minor chord. And then for this E minor, you might move this middle note, this B note, to an A and back. kind of departed a little there from the original chord changes, but there we go. So I hope that was helpful. On all I'm doing is just playing next door notes. So if I've got the G, the B, the D to make a G major triad, you can just move between the A and the B in the middle of the chord, or you can move the top up, D to E, or you can move the bottom note down to the F sharp. And you can have different melody points. You can have an internal melody, so the melody is in between the notes. So if you've got the G and the D, and there's your harmony note there, you've got a little melody going, something like that. And then your E minor chord. Back to your D. So I'm just playing next door note. Except I'm occasionally playing this C sharp here. I could just be playing. You know, you can do a little sus4. So you could go. And have just a good effect. You could build a whole song out of this. Variation. Go up to the D again. So you go da 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 D at the end there. So there's different things you can do just with like 3 notes. Are you guys buffering? Are you? Well, that's a shame because it looks like I'm still streaming here. Okay, we're okay now. I do apologize, folks. If you guys could just quickly post where we got stuck, and then I'll pick it up from that point. Okay, yeah, refresh might fix it for you. Yeah, sometimes it does stop like that. I can't explain why it does it, but sometimes it just does. You don't think we lost anything? Okay, so what I was doing there was just I was just taking a little you know 3-note melody line, so going C B A B as a little internal melody, and then you can still have your chord changes. And it just provides a little bit of interest, so your vocalist can sing something else over the top, and then you can have that little melody going on underneath it. And it just provides some interest, and it's also more interesting for string players if they're playing it to be able to play that, rather than just kind of going, you know, like I started at the beginning where the first violin is just playing D all the way, and then the only interest was the middle 2, so violin 2 and viola, where they're just going like that. You know, pretty boring. Give them something to do. Give them something interesting to do, something interesting to play, a little counter melody to play, and it'll really work for you. But the thing with a counter melody is you don't want that to take over and become more complicated than the melody, the main melody that the vocalist is singing. So a good rule of thumb, again, there are really no rules, but if there were rules, and of course they can be broken, but it's a good principle to learn. There you go, principle instead of rule. Good principle to learn is if you're going to write a counter melody, make the rhythmic value, the note value of that melody, half the speed of the vocal melody. So if your vocal melody is going, or whatever it's doing, you know, maybe it's going, or whatever it's doing, then your little counter melody needs to be half the speed of that. So instead of you go, okay, so you would go half the speed. Your counter melody would go half the speed. And then try and either write the counter melody below, preferably below the vocal melody. Where it works, if the counter melody is above, is in a chorus. So in a chorus, you can definitely, you know, go up a bit as well. So, you know, maybe go. So your counter melody can sit on the top if it's, again, needs to not distract from the vocal melody. Okay, have we got more buffering again? Sorry about that, guys. Just refresh the stream. That's all I can suggest. Those are the Presonus Symphonic Orchestra that I'm using, which is, when you purchase it, it's part of the Presence XT. When you purchase it, it's an add-on for the Presence XT. So all of those samples load up into the Presence XT, which I can show you, so you know what they look like, because it doesn't. It's not, when you purchase the Presonus Symphonic Orchestra add-on that you get from the Presonus shop. I thought that maybe it came as a standalone thing. It doesn't. It's for Presence XT, so there's a separate sample pack for Presence XT, and they appear here. So you get the PSO Classic Orchestra and you get the PSO Contemporary Strings. And the Contemporary Strings are the one that I'm using just now, and they sound absolutely epic. And you get all sorts of key switches, which I've demoed. If you go and watch my PSO series that I did, I think it's last year. It was a 9-part series, so go check that out, and I show you all the key switches and all of the different articulations you get with this whole package. It's so good, so in depth, that you get 9 videos on it. But here's the cool thing: the price. The price is ridiculous. I think it's only $100. So it is well worth getting if you're wanting to do anything vaguely, remotely resembling strings for your songwriting. So there you go. Let's see. I'm just checking your questions. I'm actually going to go and look on the big screen, actually. It's just a little bit easier just now. Chris Beebe says, what seems like second nature to you just befuddles me. I need practice. Well, you know what? For a long time, these kind of things befuddled the heck out of me as well. I didn't know anything about how to write for strings. And the only way I could learn how to do it was actually listen to how people have written for strings. So I listened to I listened to lots of orchestral stuff, and I listened to film scores, and I listened to how different composers use strings. And, you know, that's how I did it. That's how I learned how to write little internal melodies like that. So you say it befuddles you. It only befuddles you until you actually sit down and try to work it out. And then when you sit down to try and work it out, and you start playing with these notes, you know, just sit down and start to play with these notes, play with the ideas, and it'll come to you. I mean, that's the way it happened for me. Nobody taught me how to do that kind of writing for strings. I worked it out. I just sat down at a piano and started working it out, or I used a keyboard that had vaguely useful string sounds, and that's how I got my start doing it. And I learned, you know, how you can use deliberate dissonances, like in a G major chord using that C sharp, you know, as a little tension. And, you know, I've got an A in there as well now. So G is a G chord with the added second, which all on its own adds tension if I add it in and then take it away. You know, it's a different tension to this. That's the tension resolved, but this is a kind of different tension. So long as you resolve it, it helps when you're writing for strings, but you don't have to. There's no rule that says you have to resolve. You can just leave it hanging. You can just go. Depends on what you're wanting to achieve. You know, if let's say you get to the end of your song, and the end of your song is actually particularly emotional, or has you know, in the lyric, there is just unresolved tension in the lyric at the end of your song, you could finish. And just leave that hanging. And it can be a useful effect, because it can then make the listener want to go back and listen to the start of the song, because they get the resolution by doing that. So yeah. I'm just going back up the chat just to see if I've missed anything. Woodby says, I love the G minor 6 chord. Yeah, G minor 6 is nice. It sounds good. You know, you can resolve the 6 down to a D, or you could just leave it. Depends again on your intention. Frank Wagner is here. Frank Wagner, good to see you. He says, got a late start tonight. Glad I made it to the show. Good for you. We've got 21 people here, and we are into the second hour of the show, which is what I promised you. Deer Creek says, JL PSO videos are great. I got the PSO for $50 during the Christmas sales. Good for you. That's a bargain. Yeah. It normally goes for $100, so well done you. Super prize, $100. And you know what? For $100, that price point, this is a phenomenal set of orchestral samples. And the samples are performed by the London Symphony Orchestra. So, you know, it's the same orchestra that gets used on a lot of film scores. But, you know, if you put this alongside something like the East West Orchestra or the Vienna, it's not going to be quite as good. And that's no slight on Presonus. It's just that, you know, the other orchestral packages or the LA scoring strings, for example, you know, they're much more expensive. They have a lot more articulations. They are recorded differently. So, you know, there is there is that saying that you get what you pay for. But I think at this price point, you get more than what you pay for. You're only paying $100 and you're getting something that is actually probably worth a lot more. This probably should be priced at maybe 350, somewhere in that region, because the quality of the samples is that good. It's definitely not $100. It's not $100 thing. That's my opinion. And, you know, I'm not saying that because Personas pay me to say it, and they certainly did not pay me to make that video series. I made that video series because I like the product. That's it. You know, they didn't, you know, Rick or, you know, anybody else from Personas didn't say, hey, would you make a series on this? And I said, you know, and I said, yeah, sure. No, it wasn't like that at all. I did the Persona Symphonic Orchestra series because I like it. And I wanted to show folks what it can do, how good it is for the price point, because it is. It's brilliant. Let's see. Movie Kid is here. Good to see you, mate. Yes, it has been a long time. For sure. Yeah, you've not been around for a while, but it's good to have you back. Chris says, I listened to the Harry Potter series. The strings are fantastic. Yes, they are. The scores for the Harry Potter films are outstanding. And actually, the scores for the Lord of the Rings films, if you go and you can actually get the score on CD, I believe. Go and listen to how the strings are written for that, because they are voiced absolutely gorgeously. And you know, another good thing to listen out for when you're listening to how a composer works when they're working with orchestra, listen to how they use different sections of the orchestra to provide color, to provide support, or to provide a different timbre, a different tonality to a particular piece of thematic material. So, you know, listen out for how low woodwinds like bassoons and bass clarinets get used alongside, you know, the lower strings like cellos in first position or basses, that kind of thing. Listen out for how second violins and violas get used alongside oboes, cor anglais, and flutes and that kind of thing, and how they blend together, how the composer uses those sections to either provide, you know, kind of like something that's consonant or something that's dissonant. Definitely worth listening out for those kind of things, making some notes. Always a good way to do it, and then try it out. That's how I learned everything I know about music. That's how I learned how to mix. I learned by trying things out, you know. You know, I first got to learn how to mix on an SSL console, and so I learned what all the knobs do. What does this mid-range EQ knob do to that vocal? Oh, it makes, if I boost it a lot, it makes it sound horrible. So maybe I need to turn it down. And that's how I learned how to EQ. And then when it came compression, exactly the same thing. You know, it took me ages to understand attack and release, but once I got it, I got it. And you know, now it's a case of I use attack and release in a very specific way to shape the tone of a channel, or to get a particular track to, you know, to kind of pump and move and breathe with the rhythm of the music. So I learned all of that just by trial, just by trying it out and going, oh, that works. No, that doesn't. That sounds hideous. That sounds fine. And the same thing for writing for orchestra, writing for big band, writing for choir. I learn what works and what doesn't by trying something out and giving it, you know, certainly for choral stuff, because I had to do a lot of that at university. So what I did was I would, you know, the university choir, I would write something for them and say, try this out. And they would say, that doesn't work. We can't sing that bit. Okay, so I would then revise it and then I'd bring it back and they say, yes, now we can sing it and it sounds great. So that, you know, you just try things out. And if it sounds good, it is. Okay. So yeah, so I hope that kind of stuff helps. Movie Kid says, just a quick question. Does anyone here have a fader port 8? Wanted to know if in banking the faders, does it update in Studio One automatically? It should do. I'm pretty sure it does. I don't have one, but that's what happens when on the Series 3 console, if I'm going to channel 17, then I bank across and that next page of channels pops up on the mixer. Deer Creek says, yes, it does. Hold the shift button like you would on a computer keyboard. Just Bob says, just bought an Ehu instrument. If I can't play it, it'll make a beautiful wall art. There you go. And I know folks that collect guitars for that very reason. If they don't figure out how to play it, it makes wall art. Deer Creek is selling the Faderport 8 and the Faderport 16 to Movie Kid, which is cool because they are fantastic products. I quite agree. I don't have either. It would have been nice if I could have got my hands on them, but I didn't, and I need to have a quick tea break. Talk amongst yourselves for a minute. Frank says, just finished this weekend watching the documentary masterclass Hans Zimmer teaches film scoring. His take on scoring is based mainly on music is like asking a question and reply with an answer. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. To be honest, all music is written that way. Whether we realize it or not, all music is written that way. You have a phrase that goes up, you know, then you have a phrase that comes down. And then you have a phrase that goes up again. And then down again. Everyone should know what I was just alluding to there. But you know, that's how that melody is written. There's your question. There's your answer. Next question. And then we go back in again. Okay, it's all the same thing. One phrase is answered by another, and then is answered by another, and then is answered by another. Or, you know, the next phrase develops one from earlier, like in that example. Then you get the answer, and then you get another question. And then I'm going to keep on going. I'm going to repeat my first line because you clearly didn't understand what I was saying. But then the answer is, no, I did. I really did understand what you were saying. And then the conclusion is, well, that's good then. See how that works? And it's the same when we talk to each other. You know, I sat down with my wife this evening and we talked about business stuff. And so I said something to her and she responded to me. And I didn't think she'd quite understood what I'd said the first time. So I repeated what I said. And then she said, no, I did actually understand what you said. And so I concluded with, well, that's great then. That's cool. We moved on to the next point of business. And that's how you develop music. So, you know, if you make music writing abstract, you will struggle. You know, if you make it kind of like this big blank piece of paper, I know Hans talks about that he starts, you know, he says, you know, every movie that he scores is a blank piece of paper to start with. Yes, it is. But, you know, if you only stay with that viewpoint, then you are going to struggle. You're going to sit there for days going, I don't know how to start. I don't know how to start. How do I start this? We have to start with an idea. You have to start with a note. One note. There, that's the start of my melody. What am I going to do now? Am I going to go up or down? I think I'll go down. And I'll go back to that note. And hooray, I've got a little melody. So That's my question. What's my answer going to be? Okay, repeat that. And then maybe the answer would be. And all of a sudden, so, I mean, I just totally made that off the top of my head, but it started with 2 notes. That's how you start. Start with 1 note, start with 2 notes. Woodby says, wait, did JL say his wife agreed with him? No, she didn't. She didn't understand what I said the first time. So or at least I thought she didn't. So I repeated what I said, and she said, no, I totally got what you said. And I went, oh, okay. And that was the end of that little point. Deer Creek says, if I talk to another woman, my wife answers for me. You know what? There's a musical device right there. That's called an interrupted cadence. Absolutely. Interrupted cadence. What is an interrupted cadence? You're probably going, what the heck has he just said? He's just said something that sounds like it's come out of Star Trek. Okay, interrupted cadence. There's my perfect cadence. Going from D to G is a perfect cadence. So if I was to interrupt that, like maybe I would go 2, 5, B over D sharp to E minor, A minor, coming up for that perfect cadence again. But I'm going to interrupt it again. And I'm going to go off on some ridiculous tangent. And then I'm going to interrupt that again. Okay, so there, yeah. Interrupting something is a great little musical device, actually. Make use of it. Have a little line, and then, the answer. Interrupt it with something else, or go. So I've interrupted the idea. Interrupted cadence, taking the drumsticks away and telling the mate to go get some fish and chips. Yeah, that's the humbling cadence. You thought I was the man. Woodby says, DS, I doubt we will get anything, but I said 200 Hail Mary prayers. All right, so yeah, so that's how I start. If I'm writing a song, yes, every song is a blank piece of paper. How do I actually get it started? I have to start with an idea. Maybe that idea might be a set of chord changes. So I will play some chords until something happens. So I might go. I will play something until it fits. Now, not all of that fitted, by the way. Some of it did, some of it worked, some of it didn't. But that's how I start. Let's see what else we've got. Any other questions, folks? Because we are at 36 minutes past midnight, and I will go for another 20 minutes. We're down to 17 people now, so if folks are not able to stick around, that's okay. We will wrap the show. But if people want to carry on, then we'll carry on. I'm happy to go on for another 20 minutes, unless you are all completely and utterly bored. Most husbands hear it through a distressor. I'm loving the compression and EQ gags, by the way, guys. That's very good. How many likes? 14 at the moment. There are 16 watching. 2 more likes would give us parity, but we've had over 20 people in here. JL, you can't play a bad note. Yes, I can. But it's only bad in a certain context. Like I said earlier, there's no such thing as a wrong note. Chris wants me to play the opening chords for Peg. I have to be careful. I don't want to get a copyright strike, but, you know, I'll play maybe a little bit of it. Hang on. There you go. N/N says, wow, I'm here. I forgot. That's okay. Don't worry. Extended show today. Would I do remote sessions? Yes, I do. Go to www.jonnylipshamstudios.co.uk, and when you get to my website, if you go to hang on. I'm trying to remember exactly where it is, because the website's in a state of flux right now. I'll show you. Hang on a minute. I will show you. Let me just wait for it to load up, because I'm streaming. It takes a little bit longer for it to load up, and then I'll show you. But like I said, my website is in a state of flux right now, so things are changing. Hang on, why is that gone? Screen share, show entire screen. Doink. Okay, in a second, you guys should be able to see my website. Fantastic chords, yes, they are. What chord do you play if Dooley Stills came to your front door? There you go. I'm only kidding. Okay, so now you can see my website. So when you get here, this is how it looks at the moment. It is going to be changing, folks. It's going to look very different from what it is right now, very soon. So anyway, so if you go to About Us, we go to pricing. And I've said, this is all going to change. So this is how it is for now. Excuse me. As you can see here, virtual session musician online via Dropbox, which is what I offer. Standard fee of £30 per track per song. Pretty cheap, huh? So if you want me to do a bass part for a song, that's all it is. It's just £30. Very cheap. Probably stupidly cheap, but there it is. But if you want me to do a lot more, then here are some of the other things I do. So at the moment, I offer keyboards, bass guitar, I do drum programming, and vocals. Those are the only things I currently offer. At a push, you might get me to play some saxophone, but there's a premium price for that because my sax playing is not necessarily up to my professional standards. So, but yeah, I do that. And I also have full production fees as well. So you can, if you want, you can hire me to record, mix, and master, and do virtual session musician. The same as up here, but you get that included. So let's say you have a song, and you want me to basically build a rhythm section around your vocal and your guitar. I can do that. And then you want me to mix and master it and provide a finished product for that song. There it is, £100 per song. So let's say you got 5 songs, it'd be £500. You get all of my tracking for the virtual session musician part of it, mixing and mastering, £500. So that's the full production deluxe. That includes the session musician. However, If you just need me just to record, let's in this case, this would apply if you are local to Edinburgh. You get the tracking and mixing and mastering. So let's say you wanted to come in and record your vocal and guitar part, and then you wanted me to mix and master that. That's £80. And then just mixing and mastering, I charge £70 per song. So if you want me to mix your song and master it, you get that. And then just mixing 50, just mastering 30. Tracking, if I'm just doing just a tracking session and you just want me to record so you've got a place to record at because you don't have that at home, and you want to get somebody else to do all the rest of it, then yeah, it's £25 per hour for the session. And that's pretty much it. Not on here at the moment. If you want me to do mixing and mastering, or mixing, or just mastering, you can add to this £20, and I will do you a video showing the process and how I did what I did and why. So if you want to learn a little bit more about my mixing and mastering procedure working on your song, you just add £20 to these price points here. So I hope that helps. I kind of over answered your question about, do I do virtual session musician? Yes, I do. So hope that helps. How about live stream Skype sessions? Yes, I can do those as well, Deer Creek, and those will be £20 per hour. Although I think that's down at the bottom of the site. Let me see. Yeah, mix critiques. I do a personal 1 hour in-depth critique of your mix via Skype, £20 per session. But I also do music production training. Here it goes: on site or via Skype for individual personal instruction, £25 per 1 hour session. I also work with local schools and youth clubs as well, doing the same kind of thing. So I teach them. I have little groups of folks at different schools and colleges in Edinburgh where I go in and I teach them on a mobile rig. So there you go. I hope that helps answer that question. Let me get back here. Do VIPs get a discount? Yes, they will. That's being worked out as we speak. £500 equals 2 large size of beef. No, not weight, you numpty. Talking currency. That's hilarious. How about live stream Skype lessons? I answered that one. VIPs get a discount? Yes. On the virtual musician, is MIDI parts you send over? I send audio and MIDI. Depends what you need. So if you need a MIDI string arrangement, we can talk about that. Doing like a string arrangement or a horn section arrangement, that's a little bit extra because there's a little bit more work involved. If it's just like a solo, I can do that. You know, those kind of things. Those kind of things I can do. But like I said, you know, if it's a bit more involved, like writing a horn section arrangement, that's going to cost you a little bit extra because it's a bit more work for me to do that. Same with string arranging. But those are services I can provide. I can do that, and we can agree a price, okay? Because those are a little bit more bespoke. Let's see. Deer Creek says, no, lessons how to Skype, the best way. How to Skype. Do I do lessons on how to Skype? Do I do training on how to Skype? No, I don't think I do. I'm not sure what you mean there, Deer Creek. You're going to have to explain a little bit. You're interested in some Jan Hammer synth leads. Okay, we can talk about that. Send me an email. Send me a rough mix down of the song. Send me what am I trying to say? Send me a doc or something like that with the chord changes on, and I will see what I can do for that. And yeah, the price is as you've just seen on the website. New meds. I'm not sure what that's all about. Okay, let's see. I just wanted to make sure I've not missed anything. N/N says, now let's take it back to last week. How would you approach a Caribbean type of feel with chord progression? I know the rhythm is a big part of it. Yeah, the rhythm is a big part of it, but there is also, oh, have we frozen? No, we haven't frozen. Okay, I was just checking. Yeah, rhythm is a big part of Caribbean music. The rhythm is the large part of how that all works, but there is also a particular harmonic style as well that you need to get to. So how would I approach that? The first thing I would do is I'd listen to a heck of a lot of Caribbean music because there is a lot of different styles. So what are we talking about? Are we talking about reggae? If we're talking about reggae, we're talking about one drop reggae, two drop reggae. Are we talking about ska? Are we talking about soca? Are we talking about frevo, marcha? I mean, those are kind of more Brazilian, but you do get them cropping up in parades in the Caribbean as well. So it depends upon what, specifically what style of Caribbean music that you're after. Because there is, so many different variations. And that would dictate how I approach the thing harmonically, how I get that sound, and actually specifically how you write for, a reggae song. Guitar parts, you don't play necessarily downstrokes on a guitar. For reggae, you're playing upstrokes for the most part because you want those upper strings to be heard first. So it has a lot of kind of high, kind of like a bright edge to it. So let's see. What else have I got here? Chris says, would you be willing to email the PDFs available on your homepage? I'm having issues trying to open them. Would you be willing to email the PDFs available on your homepage? What PDFs? Oh, you want me to do a PDF of those pages on my website? I'm not sure what you mean. Yeah, steel drums are typical in some Caribbean music. Yep, soca music in particular. MGN says, be sure to check out the link to help Jonny with his family moving fund over on the HST Facebook page. Yeah, absolutely, Mike. I want to actually publicly thank you very, very much for putting that together and and promoting that and making that happen. It was a wonderful surprise finding that you had done that and you'd done that of your own volition because you wanted to help. And I want to really give a massive amount of appreciation to you for doing that. And I want to do that publicly here on the show. But yes, if you haven't gone and had a look at that GoFundMe page that Mike set up, please go take a look. Even if you have no money to donate, that's fine. I don't solicit donations. I don't like doing it. But go take a look, and if it's something you feel like you would like to do, then I would be delighted if you did. But I'm not gonna push anybody into doing it because that's not my style. MJN says, no problem, have a great night. Yes, you too, my friend. Go have a great night, buddy. Chris says, how soon do you have to scram? Well, we're not really sure. The landlord has verbally said to us the first week of May, but we've not had the official written document yet. So we are under no obligation to leave until that official document is sent to us. Once we have that, once we've opened that document, that's when the 2-month clock starts ticking. But until that point, his word has no weight in law. So he can come and he can say, I want you to move out tomorrow. He can say whatever he likes. He can't actually enforce that. And we have every right in law to remain in situ, even though this is his property. He can't actually get rid of us. Diego says, when a song has rit or accelerando, do you record it with a click track? How do you do it? You can use the tempo track, and you can. It's relatively smooth, and I'm sure as time goes on and versions of Studio One come out, they will work on that and they'll make it smoother and smoother. You can use the pencil tool and you can draw in a slowdown of tempo or an accelerando of tempo. You can just draw it in, and it's pretty smooth. As I say, I'm pretty sure that will get better. So I would just record. I would record it actually probably without that. I would just record it straight. So if I was going to go. But if what I really wanted was this. Then I might automate the tempo to do that. There are different ways to do it. You can, but yeah, I think probably drawing in the tempo is probably the easiest way to do it. That's what I would suggest. Just Bob says, you're a jazz guy. What is your go-to music that is your secret indulgence? My main musical passions are Charlie Parker and John Coltrane. But I also love the music of Randy and Michael Brecker. I listen to a lot of funk, a lot of soul. I listen to R&B. I grew up listening to big band, so big band is a passion of mine. So I love listening to Duke Ellington. I love listening to the Buddy Rich Band. I spend a lot of time listening to records, and I think a lot of professional musicians and professional mix engineers, because they do music for a living. So music is in their studio when they're working. So that's kind of like their job. So, when they're at home, the last thing they want to do is listen to more music. But you see, I disagree. I think a lot of people, they go home and they don't listen to music at home. They don't listen for fun. They only listen critically when they're in the studio. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that musician. I want to be the kind of person that is able to listen for fun, listen for pleasure, listen to just enjoy somebody's great work, great performance, and not go, I can really hear that kick drum pump because I think the release time is too fast. I don't want to be thinking like that. Or, wow, what a set of chord changes this guy has to blow over. Man, the way he uses that flat 9 as a passing note into the next major 7 chord. I don't want to be sitting there doing that. Particularly if I'm at a restaurant. I'll tell you a little story. My wife and I, we got together 13 years ago. And we got together at Valentine's weekend. So we went out to a restaurant and it was Valentine's weekend. We booked a table and we had a nice table in a nice little private booth. And right next to us was a string quartet. Now, here's the thing. As we sat listening, kind of like my now wife said, "Are you all right? You look like you're in some discomfort." And I said, "Yeah, I'm fine, but the viola's C string is ever so slightly sharp." And it was just, it was really grabbing at me and I couldn't let go of it. Nowadays, I try, I have perfect pitch. So those kind of things, they still irk me, but I have to try and kind of suppress them because those are not the things that you really want to be talking about on a romantic date. So, as it happened, we got past that. And, here we are coming up on 12 years married, which is great. But I don't want to be the kind of person that doesn't listen to music for fun. So I would say, listen to music for fun. Go and find a jazz club somewhere or a blues club somewhere and listen to somebody fantastic, who has bags of talent that you can just sit and you can just dig what they're doing without really being critical and analyzing what they're doing. So there you go. Diego says, can you not record it and then alter your tempo track for the retard? Yes, you can, and that's what I would recommend. Dooley still says, music is what the radio tells us it is. No, it isn't. You are being provocative, my friend. Deer Creek says, I had a Berkeley teacher as a roommate, monster keyboard player, would analyze everything, ended up quitting music because it became too predictable to him. You know what? I can totally relate to that. I am not a monster keyboard player by any stretch of the imagination. I am pretty good. I am competitively good in the music business, but I wouldn't describe myself as a monster player. You know, I'm not like Chick Corea or at that level or anything like that. But yeah, I can totally understand where he's coming from. But would that make me quit music? No. Woodby says, that is hard to do. Being a woodworker, I analyze every piece of furniture I see. Yeah, I kind of do every mix I hear. If I'm listening to something on the radio, you know, I'm kind of listening to how things are balanced. And, you know, especially if it's a really, really good mix, I'm especially listening to that. I'm especially paying attention to how things are balanced and how things are separated out. And, you know, just like, wow, not only can I hear every element in this mix, but I can hear everything really clearly. Everything has its own space. Everything has its own shape, you know. So, you know, I suppose in some respects, I'm kind of listening for pleasure because I'm listening to that going, wow, what a phenomenal mix. That is awesome. N/N says, how could we go much deeper on this subject of Caribbean rhythm? I ask you and I know I could study it, but I feel I'd learn more from you. Well, I'm not an expert in Caribbean music. I have played Caribbean music, but I'm not really an expert in it. And to be honest, you know, when you're saying Caribbean rhythm, Caribbean music, well, there are so many different styles within that, you know, Caribbean music concept. You know, it's like that'd be like saying, hey, how can we go much deeper into classical music? Well, that's a very, very broad term because, you know, you're talking about everything from the 1270s up to the 21st century. That's a broad spectrum of music. And there's a broad spectrum of different compositional techniques, compositional structures, writing styles. You know, that's just too big. You know, break it down into something more manageable. Like, okay, I want to learn how to play a soca pattern on the drum set. I can show you how to do that. I don't have my drum set here, but I can demonstrate how it could be done. Or I want to learn how, you know, how do you come up with a one-drop reggae pattern? Just a basic one-drop reggae pattern for rhythm section. Yeah, we can do that. But, you know, just a broad thing like Caribbean rhythm, that's just too broad. Break it down a little bit. That's what I would advise. Let's see. Woodby says we're all slaves to our own DNA. I think to some degree that's true. But we're getting into you know, semantics and philosophy here. I think there's a degree to which that's true, but I don't think that's entirely true. Deer Creek says, I listen to good productions for listening music. After 30 minutes of Coltrane, I'm done. Give me some Lexicon Reverb and Alan Parsons. 30 minutes of Coltrane. If you're listening to 30 minutes of Coltrane, that's good. 30 minutes of Coltrane per day, I think that's really good for your ear. It's really good for developing a sense of improvisation, developing your palate. I have pretty much every record that Coltrane made as a leader and as a sideman. Yeah, just Bob, I get where he's coming from, but You know, I'm not an expert in just general Caribbean music. It's not something I know masses about. I know enough about reggae in particular and soca music to be able to work professionally in those styles. But yeah, there are just too many styles. I get that he's looking for wingman idea. He likes the songs and wants that to be the starting point to learn and get direction. Yeah, I totally get that. But in order to learn something big like Caribbean music, you need to break that down into its constituent parts. What part do I want to start focusing on? Do I want to start with soca? Do I want to start with steel drums? Or do I want to start with reggae? Okay, well, there are different types of reggae. Which one am I going to start with? So, you know, kind of, you need to have a listen to what really piques your interest about Caribbean music, and then break that down into a particular question. Do I have any reggae music to listen to? Anytime anybody says reggae, I would say I'd say listen to Bob Marley, and his son as well. Soca, yeah, there's lots of soca stuff around that you can go get your hands on. I think the best thing I can suggest is go and do a Google search or a YouTube search and look for soca bands that you can watch concerts of. N/N says, sure, you're right, but I feel like most of US radio pop music has a particular sound that the only way I know on how to describe it is a Caribbean feel. I guess that kind of depends. I think, you know, blues music has a lot of different influences. It combines, I guess it combines West African folk music, and I'm sure that there is elements there of West Indian music as well, with slave trade and all of that. And you know, spiritual songs form pretty much the basis of blues as well. And then you mix that with Western European classical music, Western European popular songs, put the two together, and you get jazz, you get blues. You know, that's how those styles come together, really. No, that I've worked on. No, not really. Chris BB says reggae emphasis on the 1 and 3 instead of the 2 and 4. Yeah, kind of. That would be kind of right. Yeah. One drop reggae just has the emphasis on the 3, so you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4. That would be kind of like a one drop reggae. So the kick drum is on the 3, and that's the part of the meter that's emphasized and not 2 and 4. So there's no backbeat. There's not 1, 2, and 3 and 4, and it's more like 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4. So basically, the snare drum hardly ever plays on the backbeat. It's all on the kick drum in one drop reggae, by and largely. I mean, yeah, you do get some reggae styles that circumvent that. Yeah, I get that, Just Bob. Yeah, that you were trying to help N/N find some direction. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, folks, we're past 1 a.m. and we've got 20 people still here. Good grief, you guys are absolutely marvelous. And I know that's something that Warren Hewitt says. Warren Hewitt is a good friend of mine, by the way, folks. He's a fellow Brit, and he's a legend. Dear Creek says, got a split. Great show, Johnny. Your recent vids are great. Thank you very much. Yes, these my Studio One from Scratch series will be continuing. I'll be putting up the next video this week, which will be finishing off the mixing of that little short tune that I kind of knocked together, basically for demonstration purposes. So yeah, go check that out when that goes up. That should go up hopefully Wednesday. Depends on how things go this week, schedule wise, and you know, I'm having to factor in moving and stuff like that at the moment. So I'm having to look at viewing different properties and that kind of stuff. Warren Hewitt, Produced Like a Pro, Woodbeast. If you go Google Produced Like a Pro, or go and look at the Produced Like a Pro YouTube channel, that is my friend Warren. He's a great guy. And he's extremely well respected in the music business. He has worked with Ace Frehley, among others. He's got some credit list, that guy. Dear Creek says, I like your project page videos too. Good, I'm glad they were helpful. So yeah, so my Studio One from Scratch series will continue this week and on, and maybe into next week as well. We'll deal with mastering next week. And then I've got some other series coming up as well. And of course, we're still working on the VIP members area for the website. The website is getting a facelift. It's getting a complete redesign. That is being worked on as we speak. So hopefully in the next week or so, 2 weeks, hopefully very soon, basically. I haven't got a date yet from my design guy, but as soon as I have something like a date, I will be announcing it. And then you guys will need to stay tuned, and the whole thing will be launched with maybe a fanfare, and certainly with a live stream. And I'll show you around the VIP area. Woodby says, I just chatted with Warren. Well, great, yeah. And you say you're flawed. I know him. Yes, I do know him. Yeah, he's a great guy. Here's the fun part. I think I know his parents as well, because his parents live in Cornwall, and I grew up in Cornwall. And they live in a wee town called St. Just, I think it is, where they live. And so I know them from playing cricket down there. So there you go. It's an incredibly small world. All right, folks, I'm going to go finish my cup of tea, and I'm going to bid you all a very good night. It is 1:10 in the morning here. Thank you so much, everybody, for staying with me for the whole 2 hours. I really appreciate it. And I could have gone on for a third hour, but I'm not going to do that this time. Thanks a lot, folks. I will see you all very soon. I need to find the stop broadcast button. Where is it? There it is. All right, folks. Good night.